For months, some of the most powerful voices in Nigerian politics, Northern Christians, Middle Belt groups, some ACP governors, church leaders, and even sources linked to the United States government were saying the same thing. Tinubu needs to drop Kashim Shettima and pick a Christian running mate if he wants to win in 2027. Names were being circulated: Bishop Matthew Hassan Kuka of Sokoto, Yakubu Dogara, the former speaker, General Christopher Musa, the Minister of Defense. The conversation was so serious that analysts were writing full columns on who Tinubu would pick and why. It felt like the only question left was which Christian from the north would get the ticket. Then, on July 11, 2026, just 5 weeks ago, the APC settled it. Shettima stays, same faith ticket, Muslim again. While everyone is now debating whether this decision will cost Tinubu Northern Christian votes, nobody is asking the more important question: what exactly did Tinubu see in the numbers and in the politics that made him conclude that keeping Shettima was safer than replacing him? Because that answer tells you something nobody in Nigerian political media is saying clearly enough. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you are going to understand why this decision is either Tinubu's most strategically sound move before 2027 or his most dangerous gamble. And the difference between those two outcomes comes down to one number from the north. Before we go deeper, I just want to say thank you. Since NaijaNewsWatch started, the support, the comments, the likes, and every single subscription have helped this channel grow beyond what I imagined. If you've been enjoying these in-depth political breakdowns and you want to see more videos like this, the best way to support the channel is by subscribing. It really motivates me to keep researching, digging deeper, and bringing you clear, fact-based analysis. Now, let's get into the story, because what happens next changes everything. Let me give you the full picture of how we arrived at July 11, 2026, and why this decision was not as straightforward as the formal announcement made it look. When Tinubu picked Kashim Shettima as his running mate in 2022, the backlash was immediate. Nigeria had an unwritten but politically powerful convention of religious balancing at the top. A Muslim president typically pairs with a Christian vice president and vice versa. Tinubu, a Muslim from the southwest, and Shettima, a Muslim from the northeast, broke that convention completely. There were protests, church statements, boycott threats. Critics called it an attempt to Islamize Nigeria. They won anyway. In 2023, the Tinubu-Shettima ticket secured the presidency, partly because opposition votes were split across 4 candidates. But the Muslim ticket cost the APC real ground in certain northern states. The Northern Ethnic Nationality Forum cited Nasarawa, Plateau, and the FCT specifically as states where the same faith ticket hurt performance. Those states went to the opposition. Heading into 2027, the pressure to change the ticket began almost immediately after the 2023 inauguration, from the Middle Belt, from Northern Christian organizations, from some internal APC figures. By early 2026, the conversation had moved from pressure to serious political maneuvering. Names were being floated publicly: Bishop Matthew Hassan Kuka of Sokoto, Yakubu Dogara, the former speaker, General Christopher Musa, the Minister of Defense. Each of them represented a different calculation about what a Tinubu Christian ticket might deliver. Then came what some reports described as US pressure. Intelligence sources and Nigeria watchers in Washington, D.C. were said to be relaying a message: a Muslim Christian ticket would be better received internationally and would address concerns about religious inclusion in Nigeria's democratic governance. This was not an official US government position, but in Nigerian political circles, even informal signals from Washington carry weight. And then came the counter-pressure. Muslim political and religious leaders warned that dropping Shettima would not just cost one northern Christian vote, it would cost Tinubu the emotional loyalty of the vote-rich northern Muslim. One analyst put it plainly: without the northern Muslim bloc's enthusiasm, Tinubu cannot win 2027 the way he won in 2023. Dropping Shettima would neutralize that bloc, not make it hostile, but make it passive. and a passive northern Muslim electorate is not a winning electorate for Tinubu. On July 11, 2026, the APC presented Tinubu's nomination forms. Shettima was publicly present. The ticket was confirmed. 5 weeks of national commentary and cross-religious debate followed, and the core question, why Tinubu made this specific choice, has not been fully answered in any public analysis until now. To understand why Tinubu chose Shettima over a Christian alternative, you need to understand the structural rules of Nigerian presidential elections, because the decision was made not on sentiment but on electoral mathematics. Rule 1. The 25% constitutional spread requirement.
Section 134 of Nigeria's constitution requires a winning presidential candidate to secure either a majority of total votes or at least 25% of votes cast in at least 24 of Nigeria's 36 states and the FCT. This is the mathematical rule that makes the North's votes structurally essential for any presidential candidate, including the incumbent. Nigeria's 19 northern states contain enormous registered voter populations. Winning the presidency without meaningful northern vote share is constitutionally very difficult. Any decision about Tinubu's running mate must be evaluated first through this lens. Does it help or hurt the spread requirement in the North? Rule 2. The informal convention of religious balancing and its legal status. Nigeria's constitution does not require a president and vice president to be of different religions. There is no law mandating religious balancing. What exists is a political convention, an expectation built up over decades of democratic governance that national tickets should reflect Nigeria's religious diversity. Tinubu broke this convention in 2023 and won. The question for 2027 is whether breaking it again in a more competitive election environment with a more fragmented opposition produces the same result. The convention has no legal force, but its political force in terms of how it shapes voter motivation in Christian majority zones is real and measurable. Rule 3. The vice presidential candidate's role in delivering regional votes. In Nigerian presidential politics, the vice presidential candidate is expected to help deliver their home region. Shettima is from Borno State in the northeast. The northeast has 6 states and is one of the more APC-aligned zones with a predominantly Muslim electorate. His continued presence on the ticket is an anchor in that zone. The alternative candidates that were being considered, Kuka from Kaduna, Dogara from Bauchi, Musa from Kaduna, are each from the northwest or north-central. They would potentially deliver different regional dynamics, but they would also introduce new religious variables into the calculation, changing the ticket's appeal in Muslim-majority northern states while potentially improving it in Middle Belt Christian communities. Rule 4. The loyalty factor and its constitutional silence. Nigerian political history is full of cases where vice presidents worked against their presidents or were simply politically ineffective anchors who delivered neither votes nor loyalty. Shettima, by multiple accounts from people close to the presidency, has been described as the most loyal deputy in Nigeria's recent democratic history. He does not give independent press interviews on policy disagreements. He does not build a parallel political structure. He executes the president's agenda without public dissent. The Constitution says nothing about loyalty between a president and vice president, but in a country where vice presidential disloyalty has derailed governments, loyalty is a governance variable that Tinubu clearly weighs. The gray area that the decision navigates. There is no clean electoral data on how many northern Christian votes Tinubu lost in 2023 because of the Muslim-Muslim ticket versus how many he would lose in 2027 if he replaces Shettima, and how many Muslim northern votes he would lose by dropping him. Both sides of that equation involve assumptions about voter behavior that cannot be fully modeled. Tinubu made a judgment call. The analytical question is whether it was the right one. Now, let us get into the real political calculation, because everything Tinubu did on this question comes down to 3 strategic assessments that most public commentary has not fully articulated. Assessment 1. Replacing Shettima does not produce a Muslim Christian ticket, it produces a Yoruba Christian ticket. This is the reframe that changes everything, and it was articulated most clearly by Professor Farouk Kweperogi in his May 2026 column in Daily Trust. Tinubu's core political identity is Yoruba first, Muslim second. When he ran in 2023, northern Muslim voters did not vote for him because he was Muslim. Many of them voted for Kwankwaso or Atiku, both of whom are Muslim and northern. The northern Muslim support that did go to Tinubu went because of Shettima, because a northern Muslim from Borno being on the ticket was seen as a signal that the north would have real power in the administration. If Tinubu drops Shettima and picks a northern Christian, he removes the northern Muslim emotional anchor from his ticket. He does not replace it with a Muslim alternative from the north. He replaces it with a Yoruba Christian combination, and a Yoruba Christian ticket is a very different political animal from a Muslim Christian ticket in the Nigerian north. Assessment 2. The northern Muslim bloc's facility is more dangerous than the northern Christian opposition. Northern Nigeria's Muslim population is numerically massive. The northwest and northeast, Kano, Kaduna, Sokoto, Kebbi, Zamfara, Katsina, Jigawa in the northwest, Borno, Yobe, Adamawa, Gombe, Taraba in the northeast, together contain some of the largest voter registration numbers in the country. When Muslim political leaders warned that dropping Shettima would make the northern Muslim passive in 2027, they were making a specific electoral point. These voters would not necessarily defect to the opposition, but they might simply not mobilize with the enthusiasm that produced the 2023 numbers. For an incumbent who needs the spread requirement met in multiple northern states, a passive northern Muslim electorate is an existential electoral threat. The northern Christian opposition to the Muslim-Muslim ticket, by contrast, was already a factor in 2023, and Tinubu still won those states, either through APC governor machinery or through Shettima's personal credibility in the Muslim zones. Assessment 3. The appointments have already done the work that a Christian VP was supposed to do. The argument for replacing Shettima was largely about signal, sending a message to northern Christians that they are included in the Tinubu government. But the Tinubu administration has already sent that message through appointments. George Akume from Benue, a Christian, a Middle Belt politician, as Secretary of the Government of the Federation, the most powerful position in the federal bureaucracy. Nentawe Yilwata, a Northern Christian from Plateau State, as APC National Chairman. General Christopher Musa as Minister of Defense. Archbishop John Praise Daniel of the Northern Christian Religious Leaders Assembly publicly acknowledged in October 2025 that Northern Christians did not feel sidelined by the Tinubu administration. COCN's Reverend Amos Mozo publicly thanked Tinubu. The Christian Northern Nigeria Progressive Forum backed Tinubu's re-election in May 2026. If the appointments have already addressed the inclusion grievance that the VP change was supposed to address, the political logic for the VP change weakens significantly. The US pressure dimension and why it ultimately did not move the needle. The reports of US pressure for a Muslim Christian ticket are interesting but need to be understood in context. The US government's formal electoral interest in Nigeria is free and fair elections, not the religious composition of a specific ticket. What appears to have happened is that informal diplomatic conversations in which US officials or Africa-focused policy circles expressed a preference for a more inclusive-looking ticket were interpreted in Nigerian political reporting as formal US government pressure. Whether that pressure was formally communicated through diplomatic channels or was informal commentary circulating through Nigeria's Washington, D.C. political network matters enormously for how much weight it should be given. Tinubu, who has sophisticated relationships with US political networks going back decades, would have been in a position to distinguish between formal US government pressure and informal commentary. He made his decision. The US has not officially commented on it. Shettima's personal loyalty and why it matters more than most analysts acknowledge. Multiple sources described Shettima in consistent terms, the most loyal deputy in nearly 3 decades of Nigerian democratic history. He does not give independent press interviews on policy disagreements. He does not build a parallel political structure. He executes the president's agenda without public dissent. Political loyalty cannot be bought by giving someone a VP slot. Tinubu found a running mate who is loyal by character, not by transaction. That calculation is independent of religion and independent of regional politics, and it's probably the most underappreciated factor in Tinubu's decision. The silent dimension nobody is stating clearly. Tinubu also had to assess what happens to the APC's internal dynamics if Shettima is dropped. Shettima has his own political following, in Bono, in the northeast, among the political networks he built as a two-term governor. If he's dropped from the ticket, does he quietly accept it and campaign for the new ticket? Does he become a lukewarm participant who lets his network sit out? Or does he become an active political complication? No serious political operator drops a VP without modeling what that VP does after being dropped. The fact that Tinubu kept Shettima suggests the risk assessment of dropping him was not favorable, even if the publicly stated rationale focuses on loyalty and performance. Now, if what I just laid out surprises you, drop a comment below. I want to know your take before we get to the part that changes the whole picture. Let us now zoom out and ask what this decision means for Nigeria as a country beyond the 2027 vote count. The interfaith signal and what it means long-term. Nigeria's informal religious balancing convention at the apex of government was not arbitrary. It was a recognition that in a country where religious identity is deeply felt and where religious Christian fault lines have historically produced serious social tension,
Particularly in the Middle Belt and in states like Kaduna, having both major religions represented at the national leadership level was a signal of inclusion that reduced the temperature of interfaith politics. By running a Muslim-Muslim ticket twice in a row, the APC is effectively normalizing the abandonment of that convention. That normalization has implications that extend beyond 2027. If a Muslim-Muslim ticket is acceptable as a matter of electoral practice, a Christian-Christian ticket becomes equally defensible. The convention erodes, and with the convention goes one of the informal mechanisms that managed interfaith tension at the political level in Nigeria for 2 decades. The Middle Belt calculation and the security connection. The Northern Ethnic Nationality Forum's warning was specific. The APC lost Nasarawa, Plateau, and the FTC in 2023, partly because of the Muslim-Muslim ticket, and running it again risks losing more Middle Belt ground. The Middle Belt is not just an electoral variable, it is the region where farmer-herder violence has been most acute, where communities have buried thousands of people, and where the political grievance of exclusion from federal leadership is deeply felt. An APC that wins re-election without meaningful Middle Belt vote share in a region where communities feel both physically insecure and politically invisible is an APC that inherits a governance and security crisis it has not addressed. The running mate decision is not just about winning votes, it is about whether the government can credibly claim to represent the communities most affected by the country's deepest security crisis. The economic consequence of religious political instability. Nigeria's international investment climate is sensitive to perceptions of religious tension. When the Muslim-Muslim ticket was announced in 2022, some international investors and development partners expressed concern about what it signaled for Nigeria's religiously diverse society. Repeating the ticket in 2027 does not create new religious tension. The economy has produced enough of its own friction, but it does foreclose one of the available tools for reducing interfaith political tension during an economically difficult period when social cohesion is under strain. The Middle Belt's continued insecurity has direct economic costs for agricultural output, for internal trade routes, for the communities that supply Nigeria's food supply. A government that is seen as insufficiently inclusive by those communities faces a harder governance task on the economy, not just on politics. There is a genuine international dimension to this decision, though it needs to be framed carefully to avoid overstating it. The reports of U.S. pressure for a Muslim-Christian ticket reflect a real concern that circulates in Washington, D.C. and in the foreign policy community that monitors Nigeria, that a repeated same-faith executive ticket in a country with a complex Christian-Muslim fault line sends a signal about political inclusion that multilateral institutions and bilateral partners watch carefully. The US, the UK, and the EU have all been public about their interest in Nigeria's democratic quality, including the inclusivity of its political institutions. Whether that concern translated into formal diplomatic pressure, informal advocacy, or simply corridor commentary that got amplified in Nigerian political media is unclear. What is clear is that the concern exists and that Tinubu's team was aware of it.
For Nigerian Christians in the diaspora, particularly those from the Middle Belt living in the UK, Canada, and the United States, the confirmed Muslim-Muslim ticket is a signal they will process through the lens of their community's experiences back home. The most politically active diaspora Christians from northern Nigeria are not primarily concerned about the symbolism of a VP ticket. They are concerned about pipeline violence, farmer-herder conflict, the Benue massacre, and whether the federal government is treating their community's security as a priority. The VP decision matters to them primarily as a signal of whether those concerns will be taken seriously in a second Tinubu term. A retained Shettima ticket paired with visible action on Middle Belt security is politically manageable. A retained Shettima ticket with continued security in action is not. The global pattern worth noting: Nigeria is not the only diverse democracy to grapple with executive religious representation. In Indonesia, Kenya, and Lebanon, executive composition rules, formal or informal, have been used to manage diversity. In each case, when those conventions break down, the breakdown creates instability that goes beyond any single election. Nigeria's informal convention is breaking down across 2 consecutive elections. The long-term management of that breakdown is a governance challenge that whoever wins in 2027 will inherit. Let me be direct about the strongest arguments for why Tinubu should have replaced Shettima, because they deserve a serious hearing. The case for a Northern Christian running mate is not merely symbolic. The Northern Ethnic Nationality Forum was right that the Muslim-Muslim ticket cost the APC real votes in 2023 in specific places: Nasarawa, Plateau, and the FTC. These are not marginal states. Plateau and Nasarawa are Middle Belt states where the APC needs to build bridges with communities that have been devastated by security failures. A Christian running mate from one of these states would have been a concrete political gesture, not just a symbol, but a signal that the administration understands the political reality of those communities. That argument is not refuted by the appointment of Akume as SGF or Musa as Defense Minister. A VP is constitutionally significant in a way that a minister is not. The VP is one heartbeat from the presidency. That constitutional proximity matters to communities that feel excluded from national power. But here is where the case for replacing Shettima falls apart under full analysis. The Northern Christian voters whose inclusion the VP change was supposed to signal are a specific sub-segment of the Northern electorate. They are predominantly in the Middle Belt: Benue, Plateau, Nasarawa, parts of Kaduna, and Southern Kaduna. These are states that the APC already lost in 2023. They did not lose them primarily because of the Muslim-Muslim ticket. They lost them because of farmer-herder violence, security failures, and a genuine sense of abandonment by the federal government on security. A Christian VP does not fix the security failures. It does not recompensate for thousands of deaths. It does not restore the IDP camps to communities. The demand for a Christian VP in the absence of a real security policy improvement is a symbolic demand meeting a governance failure. You cannot substitute a VP for a working security response in Benue and Plateau. And Tinubu appears to have calculated that the trade, losing some Northern Muslim enthusiasm for a Christian VP who would not actually reverse Middle Belt voter sentiment, was not worth making. The biggest misconception in the current debate is that this is a religious decision. It is not. It is an electoral arithmetic decision. Tinubu did not keep Shettima because he's prioritizing Muslim identity in Nigeria's government. He kept Shettima because the alternative, a Yoruba Muslim president paired with a Northern Christian VP, would have triggered passive disengagement among the Northern Muslim electorate that he cannot afford to lose, while not actually solving the governance and security failures that are driving Northern Christian disaffection. Religion is the frame of the debate. Electoral arithmetic is the substance of the decision. Let me give you 4 signals to watch between now and January 2027 that will tell you whether Tinubu's decision to retain Shettima is the right call or whether it becomes the pressure point that costs him the election. Signal 1. APC performance in the off-cycle governors' elections. Nigeria has several off-cycle governors' elections scheduled in 2026 and early 2027 in states like Anambra, Ondo, and others. Watch the APC performance in states with significant Northern Christian populations among the electorate. If APC performs at or above 2023 levels in those elections, it suggests the Muslim-Muslim ticket is not driving significant Christian voter migration to the opposition. If APC performance declines specifically in constituencies with significant Northern Christian populations, it is an early warning signal that the retained Shettima ticket is costing real votes.
Signal 2. Middle Belt security improvements or the absence of them. The core political grievance of the Middle Belt is security, not the VP ticket. If the federal government demonstrates visible, measurable security improvements in Benue, Plateau, and Nasarawa between now and December 2026, prosecutions of perpetrators, military deployments that reduce attacks, compensation and resettlement of IDPs, the political weight of the VV ticket question diminishes. Middle Belt voters who feel their security has improved will not vote based on VP religion alone. If security remains as it is, the VP ticket debate reignites as a proxy for a deeper abandonment narrative. Signal 3. Whether any significant Northern Christian organization withdraws previously stated support. Archbishop Daniel's October 2025 statement that Christians did not feel sidelined was significant and was cited by the Tinubu camp as evidence that the Christian inclusion demand had been met through appointments. What whether any major Northern Christian body, COCIN, the CAN leadership in northern states, or the EWA leadership issues a statement in response to the formal Shettima confirmation that withdraws previously stated support or explicitly conditions 2027 endorsement on security improvements. Such a statement would reopen the VP debate from a church institutional level rather than a political advocacy level. Its absence would confirm that the Tinubu camp's assessment that the appointment strategy neutralized the VP demand was correct. Signal 4. Voter registration numbers in Middle Belt states. The most concrete early indicator of voter motivation is registration. Watch INEC's voter registration updates in Benue, Plateau, Nasarawa, and Niger states in the coming months. A surge in new voter registrations in these states, particularly in rural communities and among younger voters, could signal energized opposition mobilization driven partly by the VP decision and partly by security grievances. Flat or declining registration in Middle Belt states suggests that voter motivation in the region is driven more by security experience than by ticket composition, and that the VP decision has not triggered a new wave of anti-APC political engagement. Best case scenario for the APC. The Muslim-Muslim ticket is normalized by the time campaign season reaches its peak. Security improvements in the Middle Belt, visible and communicated clearly, neutralize the inclusion argument.
Northern Muslim enthusiasm for the ticket holds, delivering the APC's 2023 numbers in the Northwest and Northeast. Middle Belt Christian organizations stay quiet or maintain their May 2026 supportive posture. The opposition's fragmentation across NCD, ADC, and APM platforms means that even reduced APC performance in Middle Belt states does not flip enough states to cost Tinubu the 25% spread requirement. Tinubu wins his second term, narrowly but clearly. Worst-case scenario. The Middle Belt security situation deteriorates further between now and December 2026. A major attack in Benue or Plateau in September or October generates national outrage. Northern Christian organizations issue a formal statement withdrawing support and citing both the VP ticket and security inaction. Middle Belt voter registration surges, driven by motivated opposition mobilization. The NCD and ADC campaigns target the Middle Belt specifically, making the Muslim-Muslim ticket and security failures a combined campaign message. APC performance in Plateau, Nasarawa, and Benue drops significantly from 2023 levels, costing Tinubu the spread requirement in one or two northern states. If Tinubu drops below 25% in more than 12 states, the election goes to a runoff scenario or is decided by the spread, not the popular vote. That is a political crisis that the Shettima retention decision will be cited as having triggered. The long-term consequence. By retaining the Muslim-Muslim ticket across two consecutive elections, Tinubu has effectively established a new political normal in Nigerian presidential elections. Either that normal proves sustainable, in which case future APC tickets can continue to prioritize Northern Muslim voter enthusiasm over religious balancing, or it triggers a Christian political mobilization in 2027 and beyond that reshapes the electoral map in ways the APC did not fully model. History will judge this decision not by the intention behind it, but by the electoral result it produces. Let me take you back to the question I opened with. What exactly did Tinubu see in the numbers and in the politics that made him conclude that keeping Shettima was safer than replacing him? Here is my complete answer.
He saw that replacing Shettima with a northern Christian would not produce a Muslim Christian ticket. It would produce a Yoruba Christian ticket, which is very different in the eyes of the northern Muslim electorate that turned out for him in 2023. He saw that the northern Muslim bloc's passive disengagement from a Tinubu Christian ticket would cost him more votes in the northwest and northeast than a retained Shettima ticket would cost him among northern Christians in the Middle Belt. He saw that his appointment strategy, Akume, Nentewe, Musa, had done enough work to keep northern Christian institutional leadership quiet, at least through the election. And he saw that the one thing money could not replace on his ticket was a VP who is genuinely loyal and has not built a parallel political structure. Whether all of those calculations are correct, we will find out on January 16, 2027. If Tinubu wins the Middle Belt states he needs for the spread requirement, the decision will be called brilliant in retrospect. If those states flip to the opposition because of the combined weight of the VP ticket and unresolved security failures, this will be remembered as the moment Tinubu chose political loyalty over electoral pragmatism and paid for it. What do you think? Did Tinubu make the right call keeping Shettima? Or do you think a northern Christian running mate would have changed the political map? Drop your honest take in the comments, and if someone you know is asking this question, share this video with them before they make up their mind. Before you go, I just want to sincerely thank you for spending your time with NaijaNewsWatch today. Your support means more than you probably realize. Every view, every thoughtful comment, every like, every share, and every subscription helps this channel continue to grow and gives me the motivation to keep researching and creating balanced, in-depth documentaries about Nigerian politics. If today's video gave you a clearer understanding of what's happening beyond the headlines, please share it with someone who would appreciate it too. Thank you for being part of this community. I'll see you in the next documentary. Until then, stay informed, keep asking questions, and as always, stay sharp.